Welcome, everyone. My name is Lucio. I will be your host today. If you're here for the cut test automation time by 80% with TrueTest, you are in the right place. I have with me Miley, our senior product manager of all things amazingly AI here at Katalon, and she's going to delight us today with a bunch of good information of TrueTest, and also Alex Martins, our VP of strategy. Alex, how's it going?
Looking great, man. I'm really excited about what we have to show today.
Nice. Miley, how are you this morning?
I'm fantastic. I cannot wait to share with you our journey of TrueTest and the product demo.
Excellent. And to the rest of the audience, good morning, good evening, or good afternoon, wherever you're joining in from. You are more than welcome to chat on the chat window here in the Zoom webinar interface. If you have any questions, please do not wait until the end, even though we have a Q&A session or part of the webinar today will be dedicated to Q&A. Do not wait until then to ask any questions that you may have. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of this screen with it looks like a little message bubble with a question mark in it. Hit that, put any questions that you may have so we can go ahead and address them throughout the webinar or after. At some point, I'll shut up and I'm going to start keeping an eye on those questions so I can help with something. But also, we will document those. And in the unlike case that we cannot answer or we don't get to answer to those questions during the webinar, we will follow up after the presentation. Other than that, these will be recorded. Also, we're going to have multiple instances of this webinar with more updates in the coming months. So if by any chance, hopefully not, you need to leave early, you can always come back and catch up where you left off. And or if you want to share this with your colleagues, you will be able to watch it on demand later today. With that being said, today we're going to discuss, if we can go to the next slide, Alex, we are going to give you an intro, which we just did. We're going to talk about TrueTest, why they created, why you should care. We're going to tell you exactly what is TrueTest. And last but not least, we're going to show you how is it that it works and how is it that it's going to help you, follow up by the questions that you may have. All right, the time is all yours. And Sujit, to answer your question before we begin, yes, you are going to get the recording. It's going to be on demand. I'll share the links and everything with you. But for the time being, let's go ahead and give the time to Miley and Alex, who are going to walk us through all these awesome content. The time is all yours. I'll be on the sidelines. Enjoy.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Lucio, and welcome everybody to our session today around TrueTest. Here with Miley, my partner in crime, and we have some really cool things to share with you now that we have a public release of TrueTest. It's gotten out of beta a couple of months ago, and we have invited all of our beta users, and I see quite a few of you guys here that have helped us through the last 18 months of our beta program for TrueTest, have helped us build the right features, refine and polish those features to make sure that they are built in a way that it's delivering value to you guys. We are super thankful for your participation and all the help that you guys have done, and we are really proud about the product that we have released, and we're going to share with you today a lot of those lessons learned that you guys learned, helped us learn, and show you the latest and greatest of TrueTest with the product demo that Mai is going to run, and also share some of the benefits that some of you guys have already achieved during the beta, and also our customers, our paying customers that have already achieved that same level of value. So with that, let's go ahead and get started, contextualize everybody, because I know there are some people that maybe it's the first time you're hearing about TrueTest. So let's start from the beginning with the why, and then we'll go from there. All right, so why did we create it? this thing called TrueTest? Well, because of this problem that 99.99% of our customers at Katalon struggle with, and that's a pretty common and prominent problem in the industry as well, the testing industry. Where should you spend most of your time? Making sure that new features work properly, where you have the largest or the biggest percentage of your effort being spent in testing those new features. And as whatever time you have left, you're doing some type of regression testing, or spending your time to make sure that existing features still work. In other words, that the new build or the new version or the new release hasn't broken things that were already working fine, right? So spending most of your time regression testing and doing a little bit of feature testing. The reality, obviously, as everybody might be thinking, is it's not either one, or the other. It's somewhere in between. But do you really have to think about compromising because you do have those two main goals in every single release, right? Make sure that new things are working and making sure that old things don't break. It's always a hard decision. Where should I spend most of my time? And it varies release after release. But what we want to do with TrueTest is to make sure that you have the time back to focus on the new feature testing and focus the bulk of your time in there, while TrueTest is focusing more on the regression testing and freeing you up from those activities so that you can focus on that new feature testing, or focus on shifting left, focusing on automation, focusing on other things, right? So that's the reason as to why we created TrueTest. That's the problem it is solving for our customers, okay? And you're not alone. If you are struggling with that challenge in terms of deciding where to spend most of your time, this is very common across our industry. We have metrics that show that organizations spend 40% of their testing time on maintenance of test scripts, and that obviously impacts the ability to regression test on demand whenever you need it, or in a recurring way. Also, other reports tell us that 80% of software failures in production are due to gaps in that regression testing. So things that have escaped that you were hoping were not going to change with the release, but they were maybe unintentionally changed. And therefore, there was a regression introduced into the app. And then only 30% of test cases truly reflect how users interact with application. And why that matters is because you might be doing great testing. You're on time, you're very thorough, your coverage is good. However, there is a misalignment between how the requirements were specifying the feature, how your tests were testing the feature, and how users are actually using that feature in production. So there is this misalignment. So obviously, what that will result is in escaped defects, right? So these are very common issues around the industry, and the status quo that causes those things is that there is a lot of reliance on the business team to envision how users will actually consume or use those features that are being released. So the business has a way to think about, I want users to go through this workflow in this particular way. But unsurprisingly, users will accomplish their task whatever way they want to, right? It's once the application is in production, it's in the wild. So people will find different ways and will do things in the way that they think is best for them. And that's where that misalignment starts. And it's important to always learn about those misalignments and correct them release after release. Also, manual regression testing, that's the most of the effort, where most of the effort is still spent, especially in the enterprise companies, like very large organizations. And manually regression testing is very slow, and the need to keep those manual tests up to date, release after release, as the application evolves, is there, but it's not everybody that has the time to maintain them, to keep those tests up to date. And then obviously, if you're doing automation, especially in regression testing, which is great, that's what you should strive for. Usually that's done after some type of manual test run. However, as we've just talked about, those manual tests are not always up to date. And then you have to also make sure that the automated tests are up to date. And what we see in the industry is, at the very least, that those automated tests get updated or get maintained, lagging one sprint behind, at least one sprint behind. What we see is, the larger the organization is, it can get up to like 2 or 3 sprints behind. And then more than that, then people will say, well, it's just not worth it. So it's a very common state that we find our customers in our Katalon customers, but also in the industry as a point of reference, seems to be what's still prevailing out there. So if you are in any of these situations, as I mentioned earlier, you're not alone. What we're trying to do with TrueTest is take our customers to this state where they have this effortless creation of regression tests in maintenance. So automating or creating the automation is hard, but it's not as hard as maintaining it, right? So creating the automation usually it's something that's very, very known, very well known. It's a path well known. However, maintaining is where it usually kills the ROI in any automation effort. So that's one thing we want to help our customers, is to not get into that situation, have technology work for them to effortlessly create and maintain their automated regression tests. We also want to enable you to accelerate your release cycle, because now having those automated tests always ready to run as part of your regression will give you that speed, right? You don't have to worry about automating them the first time and then maintain them release after release. So giving you a ton of time and effort back for you to use in other areas of the testing lifecycle. And then also, as I mentioned earlier in that first question about the why of TrueTest, we want you to focus your time on other areas, especially new feature testing, because that's where most of the business critical and business logic, business rules related issues will surface, right? As you're testing those new features for the first time. And we want you to do a very thorough job there to make sure that you find those issues as early as possible in your release or in your sprint, so that it doesn't delay the release later on when it's time to push forward. And also, lastly, we want to give you the ability to understand the impact or potential impact to the end users of your application if you decide to release the current version of that application that you're working on. And to do that, you first need to understand what good looks like in production, understand what users are doing, understand how they're doing those different user flows, so that you have a baseline. And then as you are now working your next release, understanding if those user flows will be impacted is going to be key for you to make a decision of go, no go, or essentially educate the development team that, hey, these issues that we just raised will directly impact the user experience. And we know that for a fact. It's not debatable. So we want to give you that insight and and empower you to do that with data that's with factual data that cannot be disputed. So that's the future state we envision for our users of TrueTest, and hopefully you'll start seeing some of that today. But let me take you through this journey to get to that future state, right? You have the traditional requirements-based testing lifecycle, which usually start with some type of requirements review where you're learning about the requirements, or in requirements, think of it in generic terms. It could be features, epics, user stories, Jira tickets, right? Doesn't really matter. But some type of requirements that you go and design and create tests to cover those requirements. You run those tests in a manual fashion. You review those results. And then you start thinking, okay, what are the good candidates for us to automate in moving forward, run those tests in an automated fashion. So you go ahead, select those, you automate them, you run them in an automated fashion, and then you start reviewing the results that of those automated runs. At some point, you feel, okay, this is good enough. Let's release it to production. Or maybe, you know, in your case, you might have a UAT environment. Some of those large organizations, they have a UAT environment where, you know, business users, real business users, get pulled into that environment to do tests in the same way they would use the application in production. There's that last mile validation. If you don't have a UAT and you drop directly into production, that's totally fine too. It's just different philosophies, right, and different needs in each company. But the point is, once the application is in production, you have to maintain those automated tests forever, right? So that's the biggest challenge in automation, is keeping those tests up to date and synced with the application, with the current state of the application. So this, I'm calling it requirements-based testing lifecycle, needs to exist. I mean, that's how you're validating the requirements that the business defined, and make sure that they deliver the value expected by the business to the users of your you know, the application in your company. So as you think about that, obviously that needs to happen. You know, you should never stop thinking about it. However, what we have observed is that requirements are not the only way to use, or not the only artifact to use as sort of the foundation for your knowledge in order to build the right test coverage. Another point of or another type of artifact that you should also consider, and as a matter of fact, as we've learned throughout the past couple of years here in working in TrueTest, it is something that is even more defined, even more factual, undisputable, which is what we're calling the user-based testing lifecycle. What that means is that, imagine you have the ability to observe how the users in production are actually going through those different user flows, right? Right or wrong, if you wanted them to, or if your business team wanted them to go through those flows the way they're going through them or not, is not really relevant. The fact is, they are going through those flows in the way they want. And they are getting some value because your company is making money, or, you know, whatever business metric is important to you, you know, retention, decrease of drop rate, NPS score, right? Whatever business metric your company is tracking, it's usually trending in the right direction. So there is some level of quality there, and learning about what the users are going through and how they're going through gives you tremendous power to say, okay, let me now understand what those user flows are in a user journey map format, right? And you'll see what that looks like today. But think of it as, I'm clearly visualizing the way users go through my application, through the different parts of my applications, different functions, different modules, right? However you break down your application. So visualizing that in a journey map gives you immediate intel to say, wow, this is not how I'm testing the application as part of my requirements-based testing lifecycle, because that's not how the requirements were defined, right? So you right there, you find out that there's this misalignment that I mentioned in the beginning, that users are going through the application in different ways than compared to how I was testing it, right? So that's the first thing there. Second thing is, okay, I need to share this information with my business team, with my product owner, my business analyst, right? Whoever's responsible for defining the requirements. So that's the feedback loop that is essentially augmenting your team, your whole team, not just a testing team, to better understand how people are actually using, understand the gaps that exist between that and the requirements, and then requirements can be updated to reflect that in the next release. But, you know, why stop there? Because if you understand how users are actually going through your application, why can't you just generate automated tests that will go through those same user flows, so that you can use that as part of your automated regression testing? And not only that, though, you know that those automated tests are now reflecting the business critical paths in your application, because that's what users are doing. And nobody can challenge you in terms of, oh no, Alex, I don't think these are the most important things that you should start testing. And you can push back and essentially say, well, it's not me that is saying this, it's our users, right? I see that 97% of the users go through this flow, 92% go through this other flow. So if these break, 92% of our users are going to be impacted in terms of their user experience. They're not going to be able to do something that is important for them, transfer money from account A to account B, or apply for a credit card, or buy a product, right? So there is immediate intel for you here to not only prioritize your testing strategy in your release cycle, but also for you to plan your automated execution as part of your regular release testing. So huge benefits that tremendously accelerate that automation process, focusing on the business critical areas of the application. But why stop there, right? So if there are, well, in the next release, when you have new functionalities or change functionalities, if we continue to observe those user behaviors and see that now users are clicking on different things, there are new screens that they're going through, they're changing their navigation, right? Understanding all that and having those automated tasks get automatically updated to reflect that latest behavior, that's huge, right? You don't have to think about maintaining those tests as the application continues to evolve, right? So that's the game-changing nature, is that it's effectively we have technology automatically automating and automatically maintaining those tests based on how users actually navigate. So those are the business critical tests that you should always run as part of your release, and have the early warning that, hey, if we release this in the current state, because these tests have failed, it will cause a direct impact to the users in production. So that's factual. Nobody can dispute. So now you're probably wondering, okay, but what are how does Katalon support all that? Well, at the top here, since most of our users in the call here are Katalon Studio users as well, so that's where Katalon Studio has been playing for the last 8 years, along with Test Cloud and KRE, if you want to go a little deeper into terminology. In that, as I mentioned, that is critical. That's requirements based. That's where you have all your alternate scenarios, negative scenarios, edge cases, and so on. So that has to be done. It's just part of testing, and Studio helps you tremendously with that. And then the part at the bottom, the user-based testing lifecycle, that's where TrueTest is coming in now to offer you those additional capabilities to accelerate the automation of those regression tests and give you the power of understanding business impact or user impact based on those observations in production. And then lastly, Test Ops is what integrates all of our products into this unified test management platform that is fully integrated, seamless user experience that is managing both the requirements-based testing lifecycle as well as the user-based testing lifecycle. So just wanted to kind of bring everybody up to speed on the life cycles and how our solutions are helping in each of those pieces. Okay. All right, but what is TrueTest? I mean, if you haven't understood what it actually is, let me give you a very finite definition. It's an AI-driven test automation solution that generates and maintains, which is the most important part, the automated regression tests based on true user activities, right? So it will help you understand the business critical scenarios in a way that nobody can dispute. Visualize what is impacted release after release, as well as eliminate the maintenance on those automated tests that TrueTest generates. So that's the very clear-cut definition for you guys. In terms of the TrueTest use cases, right, the main use case is obviously the one we mentioned about understanding user flows in production and automatically generating tests. But there are other use cases that during the beta program we have found out that our customers wanted to give it a try. So helping customers to actually automate new features as you know, manual testers run through those manual test cases, and having TrueTest in the back end just capturing that. So now the manual testers are the real users, right? That I was mentioning before. That's actually a use case that works really, really nicely to accelerate automation in a team that is maybe not technical. And more importantly, completely transparent to them. They don't have to click on any record and stop type of recorder. And they just go about their manual testing cycle as usual. Migration. So there's a lot of our customers that were using, you know, let's say Selenium or Cypress or Playwright, and they were struggling to maintain those because obviously those open source solutions have their advantages. But for that particular team, it was not working, right? Sometimes you need specific skills, sometimes you need specific things in order to scale. And they saw in Katalon Studio, for example, the better route for them, better fit for them. So migrating those scripts from open source tools or even commercial other automation solutions into Katalon is something that TrueTest also was able to do. Not something we designed it for, but it's something that you know, absolutely worked. The golden use case for us is the user-driven regression test generation that I just talked about. You know, really understanding things in production, how users navigate in production, and automatically generating and maintaining those tests. That's our golden use case. And then understanding those test coverage gaps that I mentioned. So understanding what are the users doing with how we're testing in, you know, in pre-production, and make sure that we are now able to close the gap with TrueTest, you know, basically giving that to us. So several different use cases for different needs, and really different value delivered by each of those different use cases. All right, so how does TrueTest actually work? Very simple 4 steps, and I will show you in the demo right after this. First, TrueTest starts by capturing the real user interactions with the application. It shows that to you in a user journey map, so very easy to understand what users are doing and how they're navigating, how they're going from one page to the next. From that, very easy to generate the tests and artifacts that enable you to run those same user flows as part of your release process in pre-production environments. And then ultimately run those tests that are self-updating as part of your release cycle. And next time there is a new version of the application dropped to production, TrueTest will see that and will automatically update those tests, those automated tests for you, so they're always ready to run, reflecting what the users actually do. All right, so before we jump into the demo, I know you're really excited. I just want to give the time here to share with you one slide with the journey that has been you know, really amazing as we built out TrueTest, and my leading that entire effort, our entire team in Katalon, and really excited. So I'm gonna flip the slide here to you, and or you want to take control, feel free to share yourself if that's easier.
Thank you, Alex. Can you see
There we
my
go.
signal?
PowerPoint.
All
Yeah.
right.
Okay.
Okay. Hi again, everyone. This is Male speaking. I'm very happy to be here to share with you the journey of TrueTest, from its beta inception to its public availability status now. All right, so let's rewind back to April 2023, when we first introduced TrueTest to our customers. We started a pilot program, and it was only open to very limited partners and customers. It wasn't without challenges at times, especially going through the enterprise level security approvals for a new product like TrueTest. But nevertheless, we got great feedback and good validation for the product direction that we heading towards it. Then in July 2023, we officially kicked off the beta program. Based on the lesson learned in the pilot program, we updated our products and documentation to address the concerns regarding data security and performance impacts to the application under test. We reached out to our existing customer base, invited them to join the beta program. We also held a public webinar in November last year to invite the public to join the beta as well. We basically gave access to everyone who signed up for the beta and provided them with tutorials and documentation so that they can explore the products independently. We learned a lot during this period when working with different technology stacks and diverse user expectations. Initially, we were ambitious. We want to build a powerful AI engine that can do everything by itself. And we ended up spending a lot of time updating the engine to anticipate and address all possible scenarios, which turned out to be impossible. And the product was the first of its kind. So the concepts were new and the features were new. So the users were confused. They wanted more clarity. They wanted to be more in control, right? So all in all, the result ended with like a low activation and test generation rate. But it also led to the most important pivot in our journey. So in January 2024, we reimagined the engine. We made it more flexible, customizable, and adaptable to each and every application under test. We re-engineered the whole user experience to keep humans in the loop, to give them control, right? To build on the collaboration between the AI and the human, to leverage the AI power to gain more efficiency. So that is also one of the major lessons learned in using AI for testing. These enhancements together help us to expand the technology stack and industry supported. So in February 2024 this year, we restarted the beta program and we completely changed our approach to be more selective. We only enable access to the organizations that match our ideal customer profile and fit our team's schedule in like supporting them on daily basis, like provided like white glove support during the POC. We work with them very closely to understand their need to update the product and user engagement process. These help us to result in very good activation rate and very good test generation rate. Our beta user also reported back with tangible results applying TrueTest in their testing process, especially in terms of productivity and efficiency gain. With these encouraging results, we decided to make TrueTest publicly available in September this year. And the product is built based on 3 key values. It helps the user to create regression tests that reflect the actual usage of the application. It helps the tester to reduce the time in creating and maintaining regression test cases and improve the test coverage with existing team bandwidth. It helps to identify and bridge the gaps between the production usage and testing coverage. The journey has been incredible, and it is only the beginning. And I can't wait for what's coming up next. That is enough of me talking. Let me show you how it actually works. You see my screen, right?
Yep, we see it.
Yes.
Okay, so this is our sample demo app. This is a very simple e-commerce website, which you can browse for phones and accessories and buy them. So you can view a product, add the options, add to basket and check out. Very simple application. And we use TrueTest to capture the user interactions with that website and created this user journey map. So this is a visual representation of the application. Each node is a page of the application or a group of similar pages. For example, category star is the group of all the product categories, and product star is the group of all product detail pages. The engine is very customizable, meaning that if you are not happy about the way that the dynamic pages are grouped together, we can adjust an engine to meet that expectation. And the edge connecting one page to another indicates the action that the user took to go from one page to the next. And you can basically follow the home flow of checkout here, and you have all the pages of the application, like home page, product category, product detail, view, card, in checkout info, shipping address, payment, and then thank you page. And each node and edge does have the weight. It indicates the volume of traffic went through those nodes and edges. So by viewing the size of those nodes, you can see which feature attracted the usage the most from the user, right? And you can also see how the actions flow from one node to the other, and on the different branches as well. It helps you to understand how the user used the system, what features or what pages got the most attention, so that you can plan for testing and product improvement accordingly. So TrueTest also identify the user activities and identify the most common usage patterns. It created user flows. So one user flow will have a short description, a summary, a short description, detailed test steps, and a traffic category. You can also visualize it on the map as well. So it highlights all the pages and actions covered in that flow. The traffic category here indicates the relative amount of traffic going through that flow. So you can prioritize testing for flows with high traffic than the trivial one. And you can also search for flows that cover certain important business functions. It's like you have the features that the user care the most, but you can also have the features that means the most to your business. Most of the time, we expect them to be exactly the same. But in some situation, for example, like this e-commerce application, the most important business workflow would be the checkout flow because it generates revenue. But not all the customers, when they go into the e-commerce website, will complete the checkout flow, right? So you want to balance between the user facing flows and the business critical flows. And you can search for those, or you can search for other category. For example, you can search for the most popular flow, like the 2 top one or the 10 top one, or you can search for by the traffic category, or search by the business function. For example, if I can search for checkout here as well. And I have all the flows in checkout. So after you review all the flows and you're happy with what you see, you can choose to use them as the manual testing scenarios, meaning that you can perform those testing manually, or you can generate automated test cases to cover those flows as part of your regression testing. So in this case, that would be Katalon Studio test scripts. The steps will be converted into the steps in the test script. And in order to execute the automated test case generated from a flow, you need to provide some data input. So in this case, that would be 6 variables and then some data for a command function. So the command function is a unique feature of Katalon TrueTest. It will recognize the command steps shared among several test cases and create reusable functions for you. After you generate test cases in Katalon Studio, test cases, TrueTest will commit the related artifacts like test case, test script, test object, test data files into your Git repository. And then you can check out from your Git repository and open those materials in your Katalon Studio Enterprise. And this is how it looks for the Enterprise version. Oh, there is one, before I move to Katalon Studio Enterprise, let me talk a little bit more about the user journey map here. So the nodes here were automatically sorted based on the order of sequence of action taken by the users. For example, go to the homepage, go to the category and add to cart and something, right? But you can also rearrange the nodes and save that arrangement for your future usage as well, because you may have a different expectation of the way that the flows will be arranged. Okay, so let's go to Katalon Studio Enterprise. All right. So all the artifacts generated by TrueTest will be placed under AI generated folder. This is how a test case looks in Katalon Studio. It will have like user-friendly test steps, like comments, and on the test scripts as well. And at the end of the test case, it will take a full page screenshot as checkpoint so that it can use it as part of the visual testing. Visual testing is a way to make sure that the latest snapshot of the application look exactly as the baseline image to avoid any visual changes to the application. So that is part of Katalon TrueTest as well. For test case, I mentioned about the command function, and we will show you how it looks in regard of the test scripts. So for the command function, that will be the test case. So this test case number 7 is basically a browse for a product and then add it to basket and go to the checkout process. Given that the checkout process is being used across several checkout test cases, the TrueTest engine created a command function called fill shipping address during checkout. And it will look on the command steps in the checkout process. For example, input the email, input the address, and then input the payment information, yada, yada. And you can reuse it in every other test cases that utilize that function. I mentioned about the requirements to provide the data before execution. So test cases generated by TrueTest are created in a data-driven way. So meaning that the exact values for the inputs would not be entered directly into the test script, but are bound into variables. And you can bind the value of those variables to some default value column here, or you can bind them with an Excel spreadsheet. So you can execute the same test case with multiple data records. So for this test case, for the data, TrueTest provides the option for you whether you want to generate test case with 0 data, meaning that no data would be generated, and you need to provide the environment-specific data before executing the test case. Or you can ask us to configure an option to generate data, synthetic data for you. Only fake data would be generated and filling those fields for you automatically. Or if you instrumented TrueTest on your pre-production environment for the use case, converting like manual test cases to automation test cases, or converting like from automation from another framework to Katalon Studio, those use cases mentioned by Alex in the early section of this webinar, then you can ask us to enable an option to use the tracking data as the test data. So that will save you one step of getting the data, getting TrueTest test cases ready for execution. So that is the data part. For objects generated by TrueTest, see. Each test object will have 4 types of locators. It has the expert locator, attribute locator, CSS locator, and smart locator. It is selected as default, but you can configure TrueTest to select any of the other locators as your default locator for that object as well. There is an advanced feature for test object generated by TrueTest. So let's talk about dynamic test objects. Let's give like e-commerce website an example, right? So for example, Amazon website, there are millions of products or even more. I have no idea how many products they have actually. And there are millions of users browsing different products every day, and like when they view a product, depending on their browsing history and the product they are viewing, the reference link to that product will be changing, right? So if we use TrueTest to capture such data from the user interactions, there will be millions of test objects and millions of user flows if we don't recognize the dynamic elements automatically. So the dynamic feature, test object feature of TrueTest will recognize the objects that are similar and share the same set of dynamic elements, and then it will group them into one dynamic objects and parameterize the locators so that you can provide the exact data for the type of the product that you want to test in the environment that you want to execute the test cases on. So for example, in our situation, you can see here, when you view a product on this website, you will have some product settings, right? And you need to choose those options before buying the product. The options will vary across the products. So the iPhone options will be different from a Samsung, and the accessory option will be different from a phone options. So basically, those options should be dynamic. And TrueTest recognize that fact. Open Katalon Studio back. And created dynamic objects for that option. So you can see here in that category, you have the color and storage option. So the parameter inside the text, for example, this one is the color option, blue or black or gold, for example, or the storage would be parameterized. And when you use it in the test case, let me check for, yeah. TrueTest will automatically combine the related variables for those options. And it will generate the default value for those options for you as well. So that is for dynamic test object. And this is a very powerful feature. It helps to reduce the number of objects generated as well as the number of flows generated. And the other feature I want to talk to you about is the auto maintenance of the test objects. So you may wonder, like, what will happen if the application changes, right? So minor changes to the test object will be automatically recognized and updated by TrueTest. So what it does is that it looks into the newly captured data from that period, and it tries to match the test objects, the UI elements in that period of time, with the existing objects. If it can match with an existing object, then it will automatically update related attributes to that object. So when you open that object in Katalon Studio, the attributes will be updated and ready to use. Regarding the flows, like the scenarios, if we like, for example, we generated a user journey map for the earlier version of the application, and now we have released a new version to production. We capture the data for some time so that give the user some time to use those features. Now we want to identify like which test cases, which flow remain the same, right? Remain stable because we haven't changed the application that much, or which test cases now have become obsolete, meaning that all the elements have changed or no longer exist, or the connection, the actions to go from one page to another no longer exist. I want to identify those obsolete test cases as well. And we also want to identify new behavior, right? How do we do that? TrueTest helps you with it. So let's say I generated a map before, and now I generated a new map after the latest release and latest production usage. When the generation finished, it will ask me to review some obsolete flows. So the obsolete flows are basically the flows that were part of the original user journey map, but TrueTest could not find the related elements or related actions in the new user journey map. And it only care about the flows that you chose to generate test cases with. So it asks you like, hey, whether you want to retain those or not, right? Because it could be just the fact that those features, related features, were not used in that period of time because they were a seasonal feature. So you still want to keep those test cases because you spend some time reviewing them and like providing the data for them and executing them. So you don't want to lose those efforts. So you can select all of them or just one or and retain them, or you just like type all because you know for sure that those features no longer exist. After you do that, then when you view the map, the new map generated, the flows in the list will show with the status, right? So the flows that you choose to retain will have the status as retained. The flows with stable will show is stable here, and then we will have like new flow as well. In this case, I don't show it because I don't have that one in this data sample. Yeah, so it's basically the highlighted features of Katalon TrueTest.
Thank you so much, Mai. I think the most pressing one that everyone would like to hear about is sensitive data and data privacy and security. Every time that we talk about AI, one of the things that comes to mind is like, we're sharing data with the outside world. How would you address in general all these questions about sensitive data, production data, etc., that the audience may have?
So I guess that you will continue with the second part of the presentation, right? We have the materials to address those exact questions.
Yes. So just a quick call out to the value that our beta customers have already reported, and some of our paying customers that are just starting in that journey with us have also some of them have already seen similar numbers. So reduction in test creation and maintenance time, so up to 90% because of the way TrueTest works, as Mai walked us through. Effort savings around the 80% on average, increase in test coverage based on how users actually navigate through the application compared to how you actually test the application, and overall acceleration of the testing so that testing doesn't hold up the release. So really tremendous value already delivered in this short amount of time that we have been publicly available. And also during the beta has helped us get to that. Key benefits, just as a quick recap, AI-powered test creation generates those regression and maintains those regression test suites without consuming the team's time. Coverage based on true user activity, so that you always know that the business critical scenarios are always the state of those business critical scenarios are always known to you, and you can make better decisions with that. And the maintenance that is always ongoing as TrueTest sees different patterns in the behavior of the users. And as Mai showed with the change flows and stable flows and all that. So things we know we're probably wondering about, and directly answering several of the questions that are in the Q&A panel, as well as some of them that are in the chat. TrueTest, the way to install it is by adding a JavaScript script code snippet into the head element of the web page. So also known as instrumentation. You've got to instrument the application. If the company is using Google Tag Manager, for example, you don't need to change the web page. You directly add TrueTest into Google Tag Manager, without requiring any code changes in the application code. It basically leverages proven technologies such as the Mutation Observer API directly from the browsers. So it's not something that we created ourselves. It's not proprietary. If you know how to code, you can pull the same information out of any browser. Also JavaScript listeners, pretty common approach for understanding events that happen in the browser. These technologies are the same used for or by real user monitoring solutions such as Dynatrace, AppDynamics, also product insights, product analytics solutions like Google Analytics, Hotjar, Pendo, etc. all of them utilize the same technology, or TrueTest utilizes the same technologies as all of these other products. We just use that data for different purposes. So if we go into your web application, your website for your company, one of these solutions is definitely being used there. We haven't found a single company that doesn't have one of these solutions. A lot of questions we get is, well, I don't really know who to talk to. My organization is never going to approve, installing TrueTest. That was the first thing we always heard from the beta program, or during the beta program, as we show them that these products are already part of their .com website, for example. Then everybody was like, oh, so it's not something new. Like I just need to follow the same process to get approvals and that kind of stuff. And so it makes it so much easier when you already know how to follow a process. Data privacy. So the PII data, so the personally identifiable information, is filtered out at the source. So in the user's browser, it never leaves the browser of the user, never gets sent to TrueTest, right? TrueTest never sees that. So things like social security numbers, IP address, phone numbers, username, email addresses, etc., they all get filtered out at the source. So we, as Katalon, do not hold or receive that data at all. In addition to that automated filtering, you have the ability, you have full control to exclude anything, any data, even if it's not sensitive, any portions of the entire screen, but anything that you don't want TrueTest to see, you have the ability to do that. You are in full control, and that's part of when we do the proof of concept with our customers, that's part of the configurations that we help you do. In terms of performance, another common question some of the folks asked here, what is there any overhead? Is it adding overhead to my application? So what we say is, well, after 18 months of going through this and all kinds of different applications, it's really we've perfected that way of capturing the data. So we trimmed everything we don't need to see in terms of what's in the browser and the DOM structure. And with that, it's really a negligible performance degradation, very comparable to what real user monitoring and product analytics solutions do. So it's on par with those. In addition, obviously in every single release of TrueTest, new release of TrueTest, we measure the performance impact to make sure that it's not adding any overhead. And if it is, we stop the release, because obviously, especially now that we are publicly available, we do not want to cause any degradation to our customers. In terms of use of AI, also some questions there. We use a combination of our Katalon proprietary AI machine learning models that's GPT. But when GPT came along, we also started using GPT to just do things faster in terms of development on our side. But we with OpenAI, we have the enterprise agreement with them, where it's basically a zero data retention agreement. So anything that we use with OpenAI is not used for training their models. In addition to that, the way we built our AI architecture is to really be flexible and enable integration with other commercial large language models, as well as open source large language models. We have many of our customers, especially the large ones, they are doing their own POCs and getting access to open source large language models and training it themselves. Some of them are using Microsoft Azure's OpenAI and trying to do something similar. But the way we built our architecture is such that we can basically point to other large language models as our customers are ready for that. Some of those customers today are asking us to use the Azure OpenAI implementation, and we are. I mean, it's not a challenge for us because of the way we built AI into TrueTest. And then last one, in terms of next steps, we always encourage our customers, and if you guys were part of the beta and you would like to now experience the full, polished version of TrueTest, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to help you define an application to do a POC on TrueTest. We would do a planning call to really go through the scope of your proof of concept and define success criteria, because that's usually something very interesting. TrueTest is new technology, so how do you define what is success during a POC? Now we have experience of during the beta program to help guide you through that. We'll help you conduct the POC and make sure you meet that success criteria, and then you're free to deploy TrueTest across your team.